Good afternoon, everyone. The last of the webinars is on vernacular and traditional building art. Our annual programs, however, shall continue beyond this with the exhibitions as mentioned earlier. Now, during the last few months, since the initial lockdown in March last year, it has been somewhat a period of introspection. The students have slowly adjusted to the schedule of online classes and studio work. The faculty members have had to reconcile themselves with this only option of guiding students through their electronic devices. All have now become better at handling the work through this virtual mode. I still remember the initial complaints, the grumblings from all quarters, particularly regarding the studio-based subjects. There was also a period in between when the graph of the infections, it was coming down. We had also under the impression that things would cool down and we would be back to our normalcy. And we thought that this long vigil on the online pitch would end soon. But the second wave, unfortunately, the second wave of the viral attack got us pinned down badly. The decision to launch this online service series of events was made to let us brighten up the things. And thanks to the viewers and listeners, it has turned out to be quite a success. This episode today shall be chaired by architect Debjani Mitra, who has been with us since late 2015. Prior to joining the OmDayal group, Debjani had spent a good amount of our professional career working for infrastructure companies in Abu Dhabi. And she also has this passion for working for the underprivileged through her NGO, Swayamvarta RSDF. Please welcome Professor Debjani Mitra. Over to you now.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to everybody. Today's topic of discussion, vernacular and traditional building art. The word vernacular comes from the Latin word vernaculus, which means domestic or indigenous. Vernacular architecture in general refers to the informal building of structures through traditional building methods by local builders. However, it is popularly termed as architecture by non-architects. This form of architecture spans over different geographic and climatic zones with interesting influence of socio-cultural factors which evolved over time. Our students of fourth year, the would-be architects of this generation, will present their study and understanding of the subject and how they relate with their course. The presentation will be focused primarily on vernacular architecture of India, broadly categorized under different climatic zones. Appropriately, they will also be presenting a few contemporary works where vernacular practices have been adopted with extreme care and sensitivity. I would request Shobhik and Moli to introduce themselves and take the session forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. At first, we welcome you to this webinar, also thanking OmDayal College for arranging this. We hope all of you are doing well in this current situation. My name is Shovik Das.
And I am Molly Mondol, and today we are going to present the vernacular and traditional building art and architecture focusing in India. So Shovik, what do you think about the origin of vernacular art and architecture?
Well, as we know from the prehistoric eras, mankind have always struggled to seek shelter, which was extremely resourceful in providing it. And with years of labors and examination of the climate, human devised techniques and built structures which could provide them shelter from animals in early times, and most importantly, the hazards of the climate. Later on, people started to put some aesthetic values into the buildings with some ornamentation features like some paintings or some murals, and from that, the building art begins. So, Molly, how could you define vernacular architecture?
All right. Basically, vernacular architecture refers to building techniques, building materials and colors adaptable to the given environment that blends with native the traditional architecture of a region. It is the main result of this most basic human necessity. Vernacular buildings were designed in accordance with certain fundamental principles. Also, there are certain primary factors like climatic and geographical status, availability of local natural resources, local culture, local construction techniques, and local labor and tools. Now, Shovik, can you please explain how you can understand the vernacular architecture in India?
Of course, one of the strongest visible expressions of a community's cultural values and needs is its architecture. Particularly, the house form is identifiable by the members as representing the reality. They express the totality of a relationship between man and society. For that, we have to understand the primary climatic zones, which are divided as hot and dry, warm and humid, composite, temperate, cold and dry. These settlements are characterized by strong indigenous integrations of the building environment with patterns of life. Now, Molly, can you please explain about the hot and dry climatic zone?
Of course, mainly Rajasthan, eastern part of Gujarat, western part of Madhya Pradesh, and central part of Maharashtra come under this climatic zone. Now, in hot and dry areas, due to distance from sea, have clear sky, high daytime temperature, low rainfall, and thus relative humidity is very low. Because of these reasons, the human settlements are completely surrounded by narrow, irregular roads, and use of trees for shade is quite often. Buildings are joined together, and closely packed units are also seen. Now, Shovik, what do you think about the individual buildings in this zone?
Well, while talking about the individual buildings, obviously walls and ceilings are heat insulated, small window openings, longer sides of the buildings are avoided from direct sunlight. Central courtyard is found with trees or water bodies to add some humidity in the microclimatic zones of the building. Trees are also seen to the windpath to avoid hot air or the sandstorm in some places to enter the building. Namoli, can you please tell us about the building materials in this zone?
Well, while talking about building materials, we can see for roofing, bamboo or timber as structure and thick layers of reeds or grass as roof coverings are used. Clay tiles are also used in some places of Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. For walls, again bamboo or timber as structure with grass or reeds as binding material and thick layers of mud with sand are used. For floors, generally sand or sometimes small stones are piling with mud. Now, Shovik, do you remember the Bunga huts in Gujarat?
Yes, of course. The Bunga huts in Gujarat are a good example in this type of climate. These are round huts of Kutch and the real identity of Kutch desert areas. These beautiful houses are built by using mud and decorated with various things from inside and outside. They just showcase the real life of Kutchi people. They keep the home cool in summer and warm in winters. These traditional bungas are so strong that they can protect against natural calamities like desert storm, earthquakes, or anything else.
Exactly. Now coming to warm and humid climate. Basically, it is found in coastal areas of India. Due to the ocean, the humidity and precipitations is generally high. This type of climate majorly found in Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, and West Bengal. Now, talking about the natural settlements, we can find building to building spacing is provided in such a manner that natural airflow remain uninterrupted. Also, buildings are basically narrow, elongated in plan, and large openings to allow maximum air into the building.
Exactly. While talking about the buildings, high plinth or raised platform is seen due to heavy rainfall or sometimes for flood. Central courtyard is also a feature to ventilate hot air. Walls are well protected from heavy rain. Vents at rooftops or sometimes double roof with a ventilated space also found.
Okay, now coming on to the building material part. As you all can see on your screen, coconut leaves are found as locally available in coastal areas. Except that bamboo, thatch, reeds, sun-dried and burned bricks also found. Due to heavy rain, burned clay tiles are used as roofing materials.
While we were discussing about this climatic zone, as an example, house comes to our mind is the Worldly house. Molly, do you want to add something?
Yes, of course. This was also famous as worldly art and traced back about 50,000 years ago at Maharashtra.
Absolutely. I remember when I saw one on the outer wall, there was a tap fixed on the wall, and above that, there was a painting of a pot with water flowing out. Such a simple expression, but so well defined. It almost appears that every square inch of the both interior and exterior of the house has its own story that needs to be pondered over.
Yes, while I was searching about this house, I came to know these buildings are built using local materials like mud plastered walls made of karvi and bamboo. Also, cow dung is used to plaster the floors, while the roofs of the houses are thatched with palm leaves and paddy straw, which keeps it cool even during hot summers.
Exactly, these are extremely strong and can withstand heavy monsoons. These climatic responsive structures loses his heat quite quickly and also allows air to move in during the hot weather because of its light structure.
It's really fascinating. I wish I could experience that in my own. Anyway, let's move on to the tropical upland climate. It is predominantly humid subtropical climate with hot and humid summers, severe monsoons, and mild winters. Also, high rainfall creates problems of ecosystem, high seismic activity, and floods. This climate covers the northeast India, consists of seven sister states Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. Due to high rainfall and flood, the buildings are generally 2 to 2.5 meter raised above the ground. Four or three side verandas and the floor and walls are mostly bamboo weaves, which allows the water of floods and heavy rains to pass rather than getting stored. Another interesting feature is common room with permanent fireplace for the cold night light. Shovik, Can you brief us about an example of a building in this region?
Absolutely. While I was searching on the internet about this region, the buildings of Nishi tribe in Arunachal Pradesh caught my eyes. These buildings are settled on a 2.5-meter high bamboo supported platform. The plan consists of common room with fireplace, bedroom, guest room, front, rear, and side verandas. The fireplace is used for kitchen purpose also, and for that, the base is constructed with bamboo, and on the surface of the room, banana leaves are placed over wooden blocks, and then soil is applied. Roof is made by dry paddy straws, dry toko leaves, and thatch grass.
It sounds interesting. Now let's move on to composite climatic zone. In this climate, summer is very hot and dusty. The intensity of solar radiation is very high in summer. It is also very cold. The composite zone covers the central part of India. Cities like Allahabad, Kanpur, New Delhi, Ranchi, and Patna.
So now, talking about the individual houses, they sat on the raised platform so that it could prevent rainwater to enter in the house. Courtyard planning helps in maintaining the thermal comfort. Pergola in courtyard helps the air movement and partially cuts down the bright sunlight. Windows are small and placed high to ventilate the indoors, while at the same time it keeps the hot summer and cold winter winds out. Also, use of tree covers to prevent radiation and glare are seen so often.
Absolutely. As a result, you can see on your screen, mud houses in Madhya Pradesh are made with those features with some local cultural touch. The main structure for both wall and roof are made of wooden or bamboo frame. For walls, then filled with mud and grass, and for roof, it was made of thick layers of thatch or brick tiles, which provides protections from rainwater and also thermal radiation. Now, Shovik, let's talk through the temperate climatic zone.
Sure, the temperate climate has mild to warm summers and cold winters. It is relatively comfortable climate. Summers are generally cooler than warm and humid areas. We can see a good amount of rainfall here as well. Also, we can find a noticeable amount of humidity changes between dry time and wet time. This zone covers cities like Bangalore and Pune. As an example, we find Wada House at Pune and Guttu House at Bangalore. Now, Moli, would you please explain about these buildings?
Of course, both the buildings promoting cross ventilations. Pitched roof is provided for heavy rainfall, well ventilated inner courtyards, and high plains of local stone and lime mortar. Wooden frame structure and roofing with brick tiles or thatch are the salient features. Both buildings are situated in different places but carry the same features as they sought for same climatic zone. Still, they look so different due to local culture and traditions. Now, Shovik, let's move on to the cold and dry zones in India.
Basically, cold and dry zone covers maximum Himalayan region in India, like Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, etc. These are basically winter dominated areas where the maximum temperature can be minus 3 to 8 degrees Celsius. So the less summer time and snowfall encountered at winters. So naturally, buildings have slope roof, basically gable roof for snowfalls. Thick mud plaster is used to create additional insulation.
Also, the use of tree as wind barrier found, but tree as a shade is avoided to promote heat gain. For structure, timber are used so often. Walls are made of mud or wooden planks. Thatch used at roof as insulating material. Now let's talk about some architects who are working on vernacular architecture in India.
Sure. Well, for that, first name comes in my mind is Revati Kamath. Her Kamath Design Studio in Delhi is well known for art architecture. Even her own house, on the site of an abandoned quarry, a mud structure, is a testimony of her love for this earth-friendly material.
That's true. She is really an inspiration for those who wants to go further with vernacular architecture. Another name comes to my mind is Made in Art, based on Bangalore. Four young architects started this company. They promote low impact architecture using locally available natural building materials and building techniques that keep energy consumption to a minimum. Their designs boost a range of materials, creating diverse textures, colors, and finishes.
Truly amazing. Well, from Bangalore, another name comes to my mind is Biomi Environmental Solutions, owned by Chitra Vishwanath. Their emphasis on building with renewable material such as mud and timber using energy efficient techniques, eliminating, eliminating chemical based paints and plasters, harvesting rainwater and solar energy, preserving local biodiversity and promoting recycling and reuse.
That's impressive. Similarly, the Aroma Group, co-founded by architect Trupti Doshi, whose designs are informed by her philosophy. Buildings are meant to complement their environment, not to compete with it. This Pondicherry-based company is known for her ecologically sensitive vernacular architecture that incorporate natural building materials, revive traditional craftsmanship, and builds in response to local needs and harnessing local talent.
Another big name in vernacular architecture is Auroville Institute. It is non-profitable organization created in 1989 and started a new era in art and indigenous architecture. The work on the value of earth and other indigenous materials as building materials has been accepted for its economic worth, as well as for its comfort and quality, which endorse vernacular development. Maximum of the projects in Auroville are designed and built with compressed stabilized art blocks, as this technology has a lot of benefits. Stabilized rammed earth has started gaining prominence and few projects have already implemented this technique. Now, Mowli, let's discuss about some recommendations we found while we were researching about vernacular architecture in India.
Absolutely. Apart from the materials we spoke about while we were discussing about the architects and ROV, we found bamboos are using as reinforcement replacement. It is characterized as biodegradable, renewable and energy efficiency natural resource. It has quite high tensile comparable to steel. Bamboo has a rubberized protecting layer on outer face that protects it from decomposition because of water. Bamboo reinforcement concrete construction follow the same design, mixed proportions and construction techniques are used for steel reinforced. Also, bamboo can be used in columns, beams, and slabs.
Truly amazing. Now, another one is straw. For our country, where agriculture is still the main source of income, nowadays we see in rural areas people have started building with concrete, which actually not necessary for all kind of buildings. It drives them to spend a lot more money as initial investments. So straw house can be the one of the best alternatives in countryside homes. It will not only save them from spending a lot at a time, also save the nature.
It is crucial to find energy efficient solutions in order to provide comfortable living conditions for the growing population. Such solutions do not necessarily require being costly or being complicated modern technology. It is becoming more common to refer back to vernacular architecture and study the environmental and energy efficient ways in which they tackle their context and climate through intelligent architectural solutions and limited resources. A building can respond to its context and climate with minimal use of resources and technologies. Vernacular architecture in providing comfortable living environment in such adverse conditions purely through design and sophisticated passive cooling systems derived from lessons from the vernacular can help build more resilient accommodations for the rapidly growing population.
Although the role of present-day architects in interpretation of vernacular is questionable, it has been felt that vernacular tradition all over the world face extinction in the sweeping wave of so-called international architecture, which disregards diversity of climate, lifestyle, socio-cultural aspects, and behavioral patterns, and even identity of space. This concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Shobhik and Molly. I would like to add a few words at the end. Adopting vernacular practices does not limit us to use of any particular element or material or craftsmanship. Rather, it prompts us to think about forms which were expressions of lifestyles, art which were reflections of cultural traditions of a community, and arrangements which were so responsive to climatic conditions. It is probably the simplest form of addressing human needs aligned with basic green architectural principles. I feel it should be a source of our inspiration to be recreated with deep respect and compassion. Before ending the presentation, I would like to quote a few words from architect Norman Foster. As an architect, you design for the present with an awareness of the past for a future which is essentially unknown. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah. So we've come to the end of this series. And as I mentioned earlier, the stimulus to hold such a series of seminars was to liven up the rather dull and prolonged period of the pandemic. But this was also letting us take a hard look at things. I would be tempted to say that such a range of topics, from the basics of art and design right through to the forms of the new age, and yet stabilizing the proceedings through the study of vernacular expressions and forms, and finally getting a glimpse of our surroundings through a study of elements of urban design, can be quite revealing to the architects of the present and the future. Now, when we were, telling people about this program, a friend of mine, who's a very old hand at academics, so he had commented pretty favorably and pondered that we could add more subjects and more topics to this range. And my answer was, definitely we can add to it. Of course, we can do it. And we at OmDayal College, we believe that such deliberations and the in-between, research work, they can not only keep us updated, but should help. These things should also help promote more such exercises in the future. We hope to continue with all this in the time to come, and we also hope that the situation would be much better, and we would not be confined to the safety of our homes, as one would say. And we would continue with this research for definitely. But for the time being, like all good things have to come to an end, we would end this program. And of course, to remind you once again that we will be back with the exhibition of students' works again in a few more days. We have not received any questions or comments till now. We would have been very happy to revert to such things. So I think we will. Should we wait for some time for people to respond, or should we keep it for the future?
Yeah, maybe another few minutes, if we can.
In the meantime, I have a question on this.
Yes.
How would you explain the what do you call the revival of the vernacular system? Why did it happen? I mean, it was not there before. Was a few pioneers like maybe architect Laurie Baker, who pointed it to us that we can go back to it, or rather we can.
I think the question is for our students. Will you like to answer your opinion, sir? Many of you are interested in vernacular architecture, and it shows when you choose your thesis topic. So what exactly, interests you regarding vernacular architecture? That will speak for this generation, and I'll add later on.
No, well, first of all, the vernacular means a particular identity of a place. Well, while we are seeing buildings at Kolkata, we can relate to it from Kolkata, not from Mumbai or not from Delhi. That's the main thing attracts me. And another thing, which combined with sustainable materials, that as the day goes on, the use of steel, concrete are rapidly growing, and thus we are leaving the carbon footprints to our society. So these need to be reduced. That's another reason.
Supposing this, this is in response to what Shovik has said. Supposing we are in a region where, what we call local materials are not available, or maybe whatever is available is not adequate for the buildings of today. So what happens then?
Then we have to carry material from nearest location, or
I'll give you an example. Say we are talking about you had spoken about Bonga huts in the Kutch region. So, and I had planned a trip to the run of Kutch some time back, and I found that tourism operators are providing Bonga hut stays as a premium option. So supposing we are talking about Bonga huts, and let's say the material that we have there, do you actually find them in that region, locally available in that region, or?
No, they are not locally available. They have to carry those things, or sometimes they made from stone darts. Those colors, they made from stone darts or something lime, like that.
So can we conclude that vernacular does not only mean utilization of local materials, it can also mean an expression of the cultural form and thoughts and the lifestyle?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Sir.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So
Actually, I feel that the students are, there is a tendency to go back to ethnicity. And also, probably they are more aware than us, what we were during our student life. They're more aware of the environmental movements, what are happening. So more green buildings, more environment-friendly buildings. And of course, when everything is so globalized, probably ethnicity adds a different flavor to their experimentation.
it provides you a better identity in terms
Right,
of
exactly. Yeah.
I think everybody is looking for a better identity these days. So
Exactly.
that could be a stimulus also.
Yeah. Right.
Shika, thank you, students. Thank you, Vijani ma'am, for
Thank
a
you,
nice
sir.
session, revealing session. And I think we should end the program today,
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
be back on air with our exhibitions. Thank you, viewers.
Thank you.